Big Blue, stand up, baby. Because for the first time since Obama was president, the Giants head into week 2 with the dub. So today, on today's Blue Rush preview, we get to know our enemy, the Carolina Panthers, do a little back talk with our guy, Brendan Jacobs, and get the kids and the adults together for another edition of Story Times. But first, we have New York Post Giants beat writer Paul Schwartz with the latest news and updates coming from the Giants practice facility. All right, let's talk some ball with Paul. And of course, we're going to get Paul's predictions. Get them up on the screen. Paul, you went 5 for 7 last week, but we're going to talk about that later on. A lot of people are going to be calling you before they call their bookie. So a lot of Giants fans are on social media with their chest out right now. Granted, they got the win, but let's talk about the players. What's the mood like around Quest Diagnostics training facility? They haven't bit the cheese, have they, going into this week 2 matchup against the Panthers?
Well, shockingly, Brandon, the mood is good, right? That's what happens. You know, I've been around there for many years, and the mood is often very bad when they lose. The mood is good. Look, they're not doing backflips. I think they have their head on straight. Look, they know if that field goal goes through the uprights instead of going wide left, then they lose. And we've seen that game a million times with the Giants where they played just well enough to lose. This game, they played just well enough to win. It's hard for me to even say because they haven't done it in so long. Brandon, look, you come from a coaching family, right? What do coaches have to do? What's their main thing? Well, one of their main things.
Get you ready for the next game.
And go against human nature, right?
Yeah.
When you win, you got to knock them down a little bit. When you lose, you got to bring them back up a little bit. I don't think Brian Daboll has any problem with that. Look, they didn't score 40 points, and the defense almost gave up the game-winning field goal. So a lot of teaching points. I think there's no issue with that. But look, we'll have to see Sunday, 1 o'clock. You never know how these teams respond. The Panthers lost a game. They're desperate. The Giants won a game. Maybe they're not as desperate. That's just the way the NFL works very often.
So when you say knock them down a bit, you got to humble them. I get what you're saying. My father, he's done that. His William & Mary team, they're 2-0 right now. They're going to Lafayette this weekend. You kind of got to say, as a kid, he always saying, like, Marcus Aurelius hired someone to talk to him in the back of his ear when he was getting praised to mumble, "You are only a man." So what's Brian Daboll doing to let them know that, hey, you need to stay locked in and you need to stay focused because the Panthers are coming into town?
You show them the tape and you show them this was good. Yeah. This was, look, I mean, do you think Daniel Jones needs to see another replay of the interception he threw? He knew it was a bad pass in the end zone to Saquon Barkley. So, you know, he played well. He only had 4 incomplete passes, but that was a teaching moment. And Brian Daboll yelled at him about it on the sideline, and people went crazy about it. And it's like, well, that's what coaches do, right? And sometimes they raise their voice, God forbid. Wow, that really happens, huh? On the sideline. When it's caught on video, it's a big deal. It's not a big deal, and you want to see that. You want to see coaching. Look, you played, right? You make a mistake and the coach didn't say anything to you, that's a problem, right? Because that means he doesn't care about me. He's not planning on me. You want him coaching you hard. There was enough mistakes there that Brian Daboll didn't exactly say, this is a perfect game, let's move on.
It's funny you say that because I remember trying to make the team with the Steelers. Bruce Arians, he would jump on me. I thought my middle name was MFer. I thought my name got changed to MFer. So, yeah, you're right. So, all right, you're talking about the mood around Quest Diagnostics. You guys, the beat writers, are allowed back into the locker room. There's on social media, there's a Kadarius Toney soundbite that's getting played over and over and over again. You're in the locker room. Can you kind of break down what happened and kind of clear that air?
Well, first of all, he was in the locker room, which you know the locker room. There's a lot of places to hide and walk out for that, 40 minutes when the media's in there. And when a guy plays 7 snaps and is not much of a factor in the opener, he could have been anywhere in the back. I've seen it a million times where you look in the locker and the guy's not there. Oh, is Kadarius coming out? No, he's not coming out today. Don't forget, last year was pretty much all Zoom, no locker room. So we didn't get to see Kadarius Toney in the locker room. He was at his locker, no problem. It was interesting. He started talking. I went over to him, and he wasn't wearing a shirt. And I started talking to him, and the PR guy goes, if you're going to talk to him, let him put on a shirt. And I'm like, okay, put on a shirt. Fine. That's fine. And then everyone, the group kind of gathered. He put on a shirt. He sat there, answered questions. So that's a good thing. That's a good start. He was not contentious. He knew what he was going to be asked. He said, look, I don't coach. I get paid to play. I don't get paid to coach. I liked his comments. he was hammered with this. Are you disappointed? Are you disappointed? Are you disappointed that you didn't play? You didn't play that much. And finally, after being asked that several times, I liked what he said. He said, disappointment in victory, disappointment in winning. You sound crazy. You sound crazy. And I like that. You sound crazy. He handled it well. Look, this is fine. I was mystified that he didn't get as many snaps. Now, Wan'Dale Robinson is not going to play this week. I'm sure of that. So if he doesn't get a lot of snaps this week, there's something really wrong because they need him out there. They weren't exactly dynamic on the field last week.
First and foremost, I told our producers I had to put a tie on before I talked to you. So it wasn't a shirt. It was the tie. But look, here's a kid. What he's going through right now, I kind of liken it to or compare it to Saquon Barkley. Remember how Saquon's like, I can't wait to come out and just go out and kill. I think he's going through the same thing right now because he's not much of a talker. When you got to understand that Southern lingo to kind of understand him. It's like when Jackrabbit, Janoris Jenkins used to talk. That's one thing. But here's just one of those kids, like he's set up right now to go out and just completely ball out.
But he's got to get on the field, though. I mean, he doesn't put himself in the game. I mean, 7 snaps. David Sills got a lot more snaps, and then Wan'Dale Robinson got hurt in the second quarter, and he had 9 snaps. So, there's a little bit of a disconnect here with whether he's going to get on the field or not. I think that was Brian Daboll saying, I am going to play the guys who I think had the best week of practice and the best summer of preparation, and we're on the field and we're healthy. And that was almost like saying, I am going to maybe not play the more talented player, but I'm setting a culture here. And Brian Daboll did say on the game-winning field goal, Kadarius Toney said, Kadarius jumped 6 feet in the air, and that's what we're trying to build here. Look, he's healthy and he didn't play. He's healthy and he didn't play.
That's coach's talk. That's coach's talk. You're not going to play. You're not going to play. And I love David Sills and those guys. I love Richie James. But Kadarius Toney, for him to touch the ball 2 times and to see what he did those 2 times, we were at the Jets-Giants joint practice to see what he did to Sauce Gardner when he finally touched the ball. I think it's one of those things. Like you said, yeah, you've got to work to get back on the field. And I get what Coach Daboll is saying. Like, yeah, the guy who knows what we feel comfortable is going to be on the field. But this type of talent, I don't think Giants fans are not going to want him to see or want to see him on the bench for whatever reason for too long when he's touching the ball twice and he's cutting people up, making them look silly.
Well, you know what? Send your emails and your text to Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka because they're the guys who deal with the playing time. Look, is he going to get 60 snaps on Sunday? I have no idea. From 7 to 60 is a pretty high jump. We'll see. Look, I want to see him play too, but I don't put him in the game either. I was surprised he didn't play that much in the opener. We'll see if I'm surprised again on Sunday.
We could just call that his first preseason game, and hopefully, that his rep count will rise. So let's go to our favorite pass rushers. 2 other guys who we want to see on the field: Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari. Any practice updates for those 2 guys?
I don't think it's looking good. On Wednesday, they didn't do much. Look, I mean, when Azeez Ojulari goes down in a sprinting drill with a calf, calves are never the next day. Remember Chris Canty years ago had a calf. He was out for so long. It's like, really? It's just a calf? No, a calf's if you can't run with a calf, it's going to hurt your Achilles issue. So I think Kayvon Thibodeau is ahead of Ojulari. I don't think either of them play this week. We'll see more later in the week if they get on the field. But, unfortunately, I think it's going to be another week with these guys.
And I'm all about pass rush. All right, so the pass rush may not be there. I mean, last week against Tannehill, pass rush did not get there. The secondary held up on the back end, but our CB2, Aaron Robinson, will be out this game. Who in the secondary is going to have to step up? Because Giants fans are wondering who is going to be that CB2.
Yeah, look, it's amazing. Aaron Robinson was one of the biggest question marks going into the season, right? And now he's gone. He had an appendix taken out on Wednesday. Obviously no one planned for that. And all of a sudden, what are they going to do without Aaron Robinson? Now, he played pretty well in the opener. Yep. It's 2 guys, I think. Cordell Flott, the 3rd-round pick from LSU, tall, skinny. Adoree Jackson is obviously the starter, so he's in there. Cordell Flott, had an up and down summer. He was hurt a lot. I like him. He's a good tackler. For a skinny guy, he's a good tackler. So he said, I asked him point blank, you ready for this? It's only your second game. He said, I'm ready. I prepared. I'm dealing with the older players. And all of a sudden, another guy, Fabian Moreau. Fabian Moreau started 16 games for the Falcons last year. He spent his first 4 years with Washington. He's on the practice squad. And in this day and age, you can go from the practice squad to starting. And I think that could happen with him because he's got experience. Look, it's going to be a leap of faith with these guys. They haven't played. Who knew that Aaron Robinson was being missed so much? So that's another, issue for Wink Martindale. No pass rushers, or, not his first 2 pass rushers. And now his second starting cornerback not playing.
Yeah, the Giants secondary is going to have their hands full with Robbie, I.E. Anderson, and DJ Moore. But it's now time for what the people been waiting for. Paul's predictions. You were 5 of 7 last week. The only 2 you got wrong was Daniel Jones over 225 passing yards and Henry over 100 yards rushing. But I think for him to go under 100 yards rushing, we'll take that any day. So here we go. On the board first, Baker Mayfield, 230 yards passing, over under.
Over. I think, as we said, no pass rush, lack of secondary. And, the Giants did a good job in the opener with the run defense. Maybe they do that in McCaffrey, and so he's got to throw the ball. So I think over.
All right, so let's talk about CMC, 130 yards total offense.
He had 10 snaps in the first game, so I think he's on a little bit of a pitch count. Now, Giants running backs coming out of the backfield scored 2 touchdowns in Tennessee, so that's an issue. What's the number? What's the number again?
130 yards.
130. I'm going to go under because of pitch count.
Okay, so he's there, Kadarius Toney right now. They're waiting to ramp him up. Panthers defense, 2 sacks.
Over. 2 sacks is not a lot. Daniel Jones, I think, played himself into a couple of sacks, so I think over.
All right, Riverside, let's go to the Giants. Saquon Barkley, NFC Offensive Player of the Week, 150 yards total.
He had almost 200 this week. I'm going to say over. Look, ride him, right? Ride him. He got up to 21.1 miles per hour on his long run. 4th fastest he's ever been. What's the fastest you were ever clocked at?
I'm going to guess and put myself around like a 20.1, 20.2.
Oh, come on. Really?
Kilometers. All right, Daniel Jones, 250 total yards.
250 total yards for, I'm going to say under. Till I see the passing attack get humming, you know what I mean? Get Kadarius on the field, I'll say under. Look, as long as Saquon's running the ball, they're going to feed him, so I'll say under.
You just mentioned Kadarius Toney, 6 touches, over under.
Under.
Ooh.
I'll believe it when I see it. Okay. I'll believe it when I see it. Now, they can get him on a jet sweep. He can, he wanted to throw the ball last week. He did it. He made a good decision to, tuck it and run. Look, when I see it, I'll start doing over. Now it's got to be under because I don't know how many snaps he's going to get.
It's like my dad used to say, I'm like Missouri, the show me state. He used to say it all the time. All right, last one. The Giants, 23 total points.
Over. They had a really bad start and they got to 21, right? They were shut out in the first half. They're playing at home. They better be over because, that's NFL offense has got to score more than 23 points. So I'll say over.
Giants fans, you heard the predictions. Call your bookies. Paul, thanks for joining us.
All right, Brandon, I like the tie. It's a good look. Keep it up.
Thank you. I had my shirt off at first. A lot of positive vibes coming from Giants camp this week, but that's what a long-awaited Week 1 win does for you. But what are the vibes from the Panthers coming into MetLife Stadium this weekend? Do these cats have claws or have their 9 lives run out? Let's find out in this week's edition of Know Your Enemy. All right, Big Blue, it's time for Know Your Enemy. Representing Carolina is Dean Jones, editor of Cat Crave on Fansided. All right, Dean, first and foremost, you're not my enemy. That's just the name of the segment, man. Thanks for joining us today. But let's break down this matchup from the Panthers side of things. And we're going to talk about quarterback Baker Mayfield. He struggled for 3 quarters, but he turned it on in the 4th against the Browns. So how do you see Baker, Ben McAdoo, and this Panthers offense attacking the Giants' D?
I think Baker just has to slow down, really. He was a little bit amped up as expected over the first half, really, and made some mistakes. Looked little bit antsy in the pocket, but like you say, he turned it around late on. Perfect passer rating in the fourth quarter. Just cutting out the silly mistakes, really. That obviously comes with being more familiar with the system. Obviously, much has been made about the quarterback position and the competition they had with Sam Darnold, really, which limited his reps. So the more familiar they get, the better it's going to be, I think. But it's important, I think, against the Giants and their front not to force the issue. Take what they give them early on and sort of make more focus on Christian McCaffrey, because giving him 3 carries in the first half last week was not exactly a recipe for success.
Well, let's talk about. I'm sorry to jump in there,
That's
but
okay.
let's talk about CMC, because he's this week's Giants killer. How do you think Ben McAdoo and the Panthers are going to use CMC not only against the Giants' run defense, but our linebackers in pass coverage as well?
Yeah, I think I watched the Giants and they did well to restrict Derrick Henry last week. 82 yards on 21 carries. That's no mean feat, really. But they've got to set the tone with McCaffrey early. I mean, the Browns dared the Panthers to sort of try and beat them with the pass last week. And Ben McAdoo took the bait, really, and left them in a hole that they couldn't get out of. But I think if they just rely on the offensive line, establishing the run, I mean, it all begins in the trenches, really. Carolina made some good additions to their line last year. Ikem Ekwonu, who's come in as well, who's a formidable run blocker. So playing to their strengths, being patient and getting a little bit more creative. I mean, Carolina's offense was very predictable last week against the Browns. So I'm expecting to see a little bit more invention in terms of how McCaffrey's deployed, and maybe perhaps Dante Foreman and Chuba Hubbard getting more involved as well to take some of the heat off.
All right, let's stay in the trenches, but let's talk about the Panthers' defense. They gave up 141 against to Nick Chubb, and Saquon Barkley is looked like the Saquon of old. So how do you see the Panthers' defense neutralizing Saquon?
Yeah, the run defense has been a problem for some time. Carolina was bullied last week. There's no getting away from it. 17 missed tackles, and gap discipline's a real problem on the edge and at the second level with our linebackers. Damian Wilson really struggled last week. So, I mean, Saquon just looked sensational last week, didn't he? So I think the best way for the Panthers to neutralize him is to set the edge. Don't allow any sort of stretch runs or Saquon to get any momentum, and make your tackles count, because Saquon's got the physicality and explosiveness to break off big yardage and kill Carolina.
Yeah, I see the Panthers defense trying to load the box to take Saquon Barkley out of the game, which means that they are going to make Daniel Jones throw. The Panthers pass defense held Jacoby Brissett to 18 of 34 for only 147 yards and 1 touchdown. So how do you see them attacking Daniel Jones if they put the ball into his hands for him to beat this Panthers defense?
Yeah, I think that's quite misleading, because Jacoby Brissett missed some wide open throws last week. If it was a better quarterback, say if Deshaun Watson would have played, it would have been a lot worse for Carolina. Communication was a bit of a problem, and ill discipline as well. Xavier Woods had an interception that was brought back for CJ Henderson pass interference, which cost Carolina in a big moment. The talent's there. Carolina have got a lot of talent in their secondary. Steve Wilkes is coaching them up well this offseason. JC Horn, Jeremy Chin, Dante Jackson, CJ Henderson. But I think Daniel Jones last year had a pretty decent game against Carolina during that kind of embarrassing loss for Matt Rule, really. He had a 95.8 passer rating, I think. No interceptions. But I think you've just got to keep him contained. And most importantly is keep aware of his ability to generate yards on the ground as well. So I think they've got a real problem ahead of them this weekend.
Hey, thanks again for that, Dean. I really appreciate you coming on. And you know what, Big Blue? Dean said 2 things that really stood out to me. He wants to see the Panthers offense get more creative, and that he's expecting to see a little more invention in terms of how McCaffrey's deployed. Translation: how is Carolina OC Ben McAdoo, who we all know, going to get the ball into the hands of Christian McCaffrey, who is arguably one of the most elusive backs in the game? C-Mac touched the rock 14 times for a little over 50 total yards week 1. But don't let that stat line fool you. He could be this week's giant killer. The man has over 3,600 career rushing yards and 31 career touchdowns. And I know what you're going to say. What about injuries? Yeah, he's had to overcome some injuries during his career, but so has Saquon. And look at the game that he had. But don't take it from me. Let's talk to my big bro, Brandon Jacobs, about this week's giant killer and today's Back Talk. All right, it's time for some Back Talk with Brandon Jacobs. We got him on the line now here. Big bro, you're a true vet last week. That message to Saquon Barkley, the man must have heard it because you said just play football, and the man played football, all right. He put the Giants offense on his back and did numbers, and he even won NFC Offensive Player of the Week. So what's his mindset going into week 2 now that he's got that I'm back game out of the way so early this season?
Well, to be honest, me as a running back, I can only speak for me in this situation. So I just come off of I think he 17, 18 rushes for 164 yards. Coming into this week, I'm feeling good because I'm just here with I'm getting ready to play against a defense that just quite frankly gave up 141 yards to one rusher, over 200 yards total. I'm feeling good. I just played against a really good football team in the Tennessee Titans. I did everything I could do to help my team win. I was effective. I was productive. I'm coming into this game, against a weaker defense, in my opinion, that I'm pretty much licking my chops.
All right, Nick Chubbs did go off, just like you said, but there's no way that Panthers defense is going to let Saquon run on them as freely as he did last week. So if you're the Giants offensive coordinator, how do you get him the rock?
You get him the rock. You got him the rock last week. Same situation. We came in 2008 playing against a Baltimore Ravens defense who haven't given up 100 yards in 28 total games. We came in there and put almost 300 on them. So they can say they're not going to give up this. They can coach in this situation. They can say Barkley is the bell cow. They can say all of them things, but they got to line up and stop it. It's a scheme problem at this point. And I think the New York Giants could go in and put up at least another 200 yards, I think, on Carolina because they're a better rush team than Cleveland Browns.
Let's talk about Carolina's running back, Christian McCaffrey. The Giants defense got physical with Derrick Henry, but couldn't cover their running back too, Dontrell Hilliard, out the backfield. So if you're Carolina, how are you using CMC this week?
If I'm Carolina, I'm coming out the gates against the Giants. They have a great all-purpose running back. I mean, the guy had in college 3,800 yards. I think this was 2019. I think maybe it was, or maybe he had 3,800 yards all-purpose. Okay, he is one of 3 running backs for throughout the NFL who's rushed for 1,000, and he's had 1,000 receiving yards. So if I'm the Carolina Panthers, I'm gonna get Christian McCaffrey in space in the passing game when it comes to third down. Motion him out of backfield, sit in the slot, run small routes, and get run after catch. I think that's where you get him involved because the New York Giants defense just showed me that no one's coming out the backfield, touching the ball from quarterback to running back, handing off in a rush is going to do too much by stopping the best running back in the last few years throughout the National Football League. So I really believe Christian McCaffrey coming out the backfield won't do much damage against the Giants, but in the passing game, he has all the opportunity in the world to be able to go out, catch passes on third down, and make things happen.
Final Back Talk, really fast. Who has more total yards, Saquon or CMC?
I think CMC has I think he may have more yards. I think he's at like 3,600 or something like that because
this game. Who has more this game?
Oh, this game. I'm going with Saquon Barkley. I think he's a better back. I think he's more elusive. I think he's stronger. He's a more power back. Now, I love Christian McCaffrey. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm a running back at heart. It's never going to change. I love my running backs, unlike the NFL. But I love him. I think McCaffrey's a great back, and I think he got a huge opportunity against the New York Giants to be able to wreak some havoc on third down in the passing game. But honestly, I don't see much in a running game for the Carolina Panthers with Christian McCaffrey.
Big bro, we appreciate you coming on. Thanks, Brandon Jacobs.
I appreciate you, B. London.
It's always good to hear from Big Bro, but let's have some fun. Let's talk to the most famous Giant with the initials LT. Oh yeah, you know who I'm talking about. Let's kick it over to the legendary two-time Super Bowl champ, Lawrence Tynes. Gather around, kiddos. It's time for another edition of Story Times. I love that.
Oh, what's up?
I created Story Times, and I love the way it just flows, bro.
My last name has had so many play on words my entire career. So, yeah, that's a good one. Story Times.
That's why you're a legend. All right, let's get into this, my man, because it was a wild week one. Lawrence, I mean, the Titans kicker missed a 47-yarder to give the Giants a dub, but he wasn't the only kicker that was out there shanking them. I got to ask you, what was going on with the kickers in week one?
It was a bad week for a lot of guys. You know, the thing I remember most about the NFL season, week one, obviously there's a lot of anxiety, a little bit of nerves coming into these games because you obviously want to get off to a hot start. Several misses throughout, big misses too. I mean, I just saw the kid from the Colts got released. He missed one in overtime. It's a very finicky position, if you will. And you can't miss. You can't miss big kicks in these games. And, you know, so it was a tough week. I think the guys will bounce back this week. I'm looking forward to seeing guys making their kicks. Obviously, I'm a little bit happy that Randy Bullock missed his kick last week against the Giants. But, yeah, it was a tough week, Brandon. Really tough week for the guys out there.
Yeah, that was the only kick that I was cheering for.
Yeah, and I don't cheer for guys to miss. Even when he lined up, I don't say miss. It's just bad karma. I don't say miss. So
all right, so let's get into the Giants now. Week one win. Now they got Baker Mayfield and the Panthers coming into town. So are there any stories from your career that you could, let's bring the fans into the locker room and give them a sense of where this team's mindset is heading into the week two matchup?
You know, the closest thing I can get to is 07, right? We were 0-2 on the road in Washington, not week one, but still early enough in the season to where you have to find a win. You have to get a win under your belt. And we went in there and found a way to win late in the game. Kavika Mitchell makes a great tackle on fourth down, and we win the game. You get in the locker room, and there's just this whole weight's lifted off your shoulders. This team, for a lot of different reasons, should be very excited. New staff, new regime, bunch of new players, and they got it done against a powerful AFC perennial playoff team. So, you know, the Giants have to be feeling really good about themselves heading into week two, and especially the fan base, because they looked competent. They played very well. They played against a perennial power in the NFL. So they should be excited. They should be confident.
All right, you got Ben McAdoo coming back to MetLife Stadium. You know, obviously he had his time here. So what's that going to be like, not only for some of the players, and also Baker Mayfield? Is there a way, what's the way the Giants defense can stop and neutralize Baker Mayfield?
Well, you know, you just have to pressure him. You know, he struggles against pressure. The Ben McAdoo story, it seems like we're going to have so many former coaches playing against us because we've had so many damn former coaches. But I don't think that's big a deal as it is the Giants going 2-0. They have to validate the win in Tennessee by beating Carolina. They have to win this game and prove to the league and to the fan base that wasn't a fluke. So I'm looking forward to the Giants getting it done. I mean, Baker Mayfield played okay last week, but the Giants are just a better team after week one, in my opinion, than the Panthers.
Appreciate you coming on again, Lawrence, because we always love story times.
Story time. So I have to do that with my hands too?
Yeah, just do it. Just do it one time.
Story times.
It's Giants, Panthers facing off this Sunday at 1 o'clock. I want to thank everyone for watching today's show. And please make sure you subscribe to both SNY and New York Post YouTube channels. And don't forget to listen to the Blue Rush podcast Monday after the game, wherever you guys listen to your podcasts. And always remember, let's go Giants.